The circus arrives without warning. No announcements preceded. No paper notices on downtown posts and billboards. No mentions or advertisements in local newspapers. It is simply there when yesterday it was not. Hello everyone, my name is Amina and welcome to my book review. Today we're going to talk about The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And before we dive in, I should warn you that there will be spoilers. Simply because this review is aimed for writers, we're going to talk all about the premise, the stakes, character arcs, the structure, the writing itself, the prose, and in order to discuss all those good things, we need to reveal information about the book plot. So hopefully you read the book and you're ready to dive in deep. I will also critique some things in this book, so if you do disagree, please let me know in the comments. I would like to have a very productive discussion. The plot revolves around this magical circus called the Night Circus that works only at night. It's the circus like you have never ever seen before. It also functions as a venue for a magical duel between two magicians, Celia and Marco. This is a duel of endurance, and the magician who wins is the last magician standing, so one of them should die in order for this duel to be complete and in order to find the victor. However, Celia and Marco fall in love, and now they have to figure out how to escape this game. That's another name of the duel in this book. How to stay alive together and how to save the circus, because in the process of this game, both of them showcase their magical skills inside the circus, and they tend to control a lot of circus, and without them, the circus just falls apart. I would say that this is a cozy fantasy, not just fantasy or romantasy. I think that the main attraction of this book is the circus itself. It is magical and enigmatic and just beautifully written, but also it gives you this very cozy, nice feelings. You enjoy being inside of it and you really feel at home in it. It's a multi-POV novel. There are a lot of POV characters there, and one of them is actually second person. So it's like you are going there, you're doing this, you are seeing that, and it's aimed directly at the reader, so it works so well for the immersion. And the book actually starts in this POV and ends in this POV, and in behind the POV of different characters, which propel the story forward, you do get snippets of the second person where you get to experience the circus without any plot. You're just there and you see different attractions and you come in different tents. And this was my favorite part of all, partly because how it was written. I think that Erin Morgenstern is so good at writing immersive prose. She really does a very good job at incorporating smells, textures, feels, all of the different senses. And I feel that as writers, we do forget sometimes about adding a sense of smell, or we do lean too much in one of the senses. For me, it's definitely the vision, for example, so I really savored all the little details. For example, this is a chapter in Bailey's POV, and he enters the parlor where there is the fortune teller. So he notices a curtain which is made up of strings of shiny beads. Hesitantly, he puts a hand out to touch the beads, which are smooth and cold, and he finds that his arm slips through them easily, that they part like water along grass. The beads clatter as the strands hit one another, and the sound that echoes in the dark space sounds like rain. Wow, like you're there, you're in the scene. Another thing that this second POV does is that it adds a very nice touch at the end of the novel. As I said, the last beat of the story we get through the second person, and it essentially tells us in just one line, one little detail, I also like it so much, that even though the main plot of the book was happening at the end of 19th, the beginning of the 20th century, the second person POV was actually set in the present time because one of the characters in the end, Bailey, has an email address, which is impossible in the 20th century. So by the end, we do realize, whoa, all this time the circus was still alive. And that means that our main characters who, by the plot, they did some kind of magic, and in the end, they didn't quite die, but they proceeded to live like ghosts, anchored to the circus itself. So as long as the circus is alive, they are alive and they're together. So their love, in a way, achieved immortality, and we realize that only by the end of the story from this little line that says that Bailey has an email address. The level of this effect is achieved only because we receive this information in the second person, and we are, as readers, are the ones who connect the dots. I thought that even though there are so many POV characters, Erin Morgenstern did such a good job balancing all of it, which also meant that the chapters are on the smaller side. I didn't quite like that part, but this is just me. It's not a critique of the book. It's just I am more used to longer chapters. But I don't see any other way you could balance so many POVs in one book. The multiple POV has a lot of difficulties of balancing it, but on the other hand, if all of your characters are very interesting, which is hard, but this book managed to do that, you can show the same things from the perspective of different characters. In the romance books, we see that a lot, but we usually have just a dual POV where the characters usually describe the same things that happen to them, but from the different perspective, and that's where a lot of story happens. So this book has this similarity because we do have two lovers, Celia and Marco, reacting to the same developments in the plot in very different ways, and a lot of story kind of happens there. But we also have a lot of other character reacting to the same things that happened and showing them from different perspectives. So we get bits of a story from here and bits of story from there, which makes the overall impression of the book so much richer because we do see the same things from different angles. The overall structure of the magical world was not explained almost at all, so we do get some intuitive feeling that Celia and Marco represent different schools of magic in this world, different approaches to magic, and while for Celia is all about control and her inner power, at least that's how I read it, Marco uses different tools like writing magical symbols to help him gain or maintain the energy to build magical things like magical tents. But that's how much we get. And so there is a problem there, I think, because if you don't state the rules of the magic very distinctly, especially in fantasy books like this, it's very hard to understand where are the limits. So, for example, Celia and Marco, by the plot, by the premise, the whole book works because they were bound to this challenge and they can do nothing about it. But if the magic rules are not stated clearly enough, you would think, well, maybe it looks like in this magical world, if you try hard enough, you can even gain immortality in some way. Why didn't they unbind themselves from this challenge? before trying the immortality trick. Maybe there are other solutions, easier solutions to achieve happily ever after. And for writers, you need to make sure that the route that your characters are choosing is the only one possible. The other thing that was not quite enough for me is the premise. So, the premise of the book is that there are two magicians bound to compete with each other for life, essentially, until one of them dies, but they fall in love. And so it's an impossible kind of love, and they need to overcome so many obstacles in order to figure out a way to be together and to save this circus, which has become their home. But the thing is, we never get an explanation why do they have to compete in the first place. By the end of the book, one of the tutors, one of the people who kind of pit magicians against each other, the man in the gray suit, Alexander, he says that, oh, I have this student, and he means Hector, the father of Celia, who has a different approach to magic, and we decided that we will prepare students and they will fight and we will see who will win, and that's how we want to determine whose approach is better. But it's so not enough, because it's not just a game that lasts a day, it's not just some sort of short competition with low stakes. People are dying because of it, but we never get an explanation why exactly they need to determine whose approach is better and why they have to do it this way. But imagine for a second if instead there will be an explanation, and it won't take much space, that in this world the magic is a dangerous thing to practice, and if you are weak, you can corrupt the magic, and all sorts of catastrophes can happen because of that. So, in order to become a magician, you need to endure this lifelong game against another magician. And one of you magicians will die, but that's the sacrifice for preserving the magic and not letting it corrupt the world. And then you're practicing it for some grand reason, because otherwise, okay, you won, the other person is dead, what now? It's kind of the Tsukiko case. It was addressed in the novel, but it was never explained. Overall, despite all my critique, this book was such an interesting read. It's very, very atmospheric. It's beautifully written. It's immersive. The story is interesting. There are a lot of twists and turns and different interesting characters. And I felt like every character arc had its conclusion, so I didn't feel that there are loose ties somewhere. And the ending was just beautifully, beautifully done. So I do recommend you to read this book if you have not. That is all for today. Thank you for joining me for this cozy discussion. I hope we will meet again. And if you have books that you suggest I read and then discuss with you, please share.